Hey y'all, I'm Darla Nofziger, Operations and Marketing Director of Nofziger Realty Partners, and joining me is my most awesome husband and five-star agent, Darren Nofziger.
Hey, everybody.
He's going to take us through the home buying process, and we hope this will help take some of the stress out of your first home.
All right. So, hi, everybody. Glad you could join us. Wanted to talk to you today about the home buying process and what to expect. First-time home buyers don't know what to expect in this process. And I think it's important that, one, they're educated so they know what's happening as they move along in the purchasing process. I know I say process a lot, probably will say process continually, so forgive me. Anyway, so there are roughly about 7 steps to the home buying process. First step is getting pre-approved or getting green. That's what we call it. That's basically when you reach out and you contact a lender and you find out what your purchasing power looks like. Okay. There's several different types of loan products that you can get out there. One's called a conventional loan product. One's a VA, a USDA, and an FHA loan product. Okay. We can talk more about that a little bit later. The next step is viewing homes. Once we got you set up and to receive listings that will set you up based on your criteria that you're looking for, we will send you homes. The third step is presenting offers. Now we're getting out to see homes. We're looking at homes. You find that perfect home. The next step is going to be presenting an offer. So we'll talk a little bit about how we go about doing that. The fourth step is going to be we've got the loan approved or we've got the offer accepted. Now what? What do we do at this point? So we'll talk a little bit about how we do what the next steps from once we get the offer accepted through from having your inspection done to an appraisal and those types of things. The final thing is once all of that is said and done is making sure that you get all your paperwork to the underwriting department as quickly as possible. Anything they ask you for, you try to follow up with, getting that all taken care of, because that's the thing that'll slow this process down. And then planning the close date. Normally in this process, it takes about 30 days from the time we go binding. That's what it's called when the seller and the buyer agree on selling the home to each other and buying the home to closing. So let's start with the pre-approval process. Okay, we talked just briefly about it. The pre-approval process is key because right now in this market, the people that are getting accepted most often are conventional buyers or cash buyers. So ideally for most new first-time buyers, they're not a cash buyer, but we'd like to see if we can get you pre-approved conventional. There's several different loan products and first-time buyer programs out there. So let's talk a little bit about that. So there are some lenders that offer a program called a STAR program. That is a conventional loan product that will pay your mortgage insurance as well as give you your down payment assistance. Now, down payment assistance is ideally what I would like to see everyone go for first. The reason for that is I'd rather use the lender's money than your money. So, one of our goals is to keep as much of your money in your pocket. So a DPA or down payment assistance program is basically this. You have to qualify for it. There's several different types. I would prefer you to go with a conventional over something like Georgia Dream. Georgia Dream offers a program like that, but their loans aren't getting accepted. They just take too long in this market space. It's very competitive. The next loan is FHA. That loan is also difficult because of the conventional and cash buyers. Most sellers would like to see a cash or conventional buyer over an FHA buyer, but it's not a bad loan product. It's just a strange time in the market space. But we'll work with that if that's what you have. Then there's another product called a VA loan, and that's for veterans. And that's very similar to the FHA loan product. And then there's the USDA. USDA is a rural loan product. And what we can do is we can look if you're further out than the city limits, such as living in Cobb County or Paulding County, and you move towards Canton or Bartow or somewhere like that, we can look up to see if you can qualify, that home can qualify for a USDA loan. All right. Again, FHA, VA, USDA are the least accepted loans, not because they're bad. It's just the stigmatized because they think a conventional loan is the best loan, which it is. So we'll work through all that. Don't worry. Let's just take a look and see what you have. All right. So once we know what your purchasing power is, what particular type of loan product you have, the next step is setting you up to receive listings. All right. We do that through sending you information. What's that?
Shopping.
Yes.
We love the shopping.
The next step is shopping. So what we'll do is we'll set you up in the MLS to receive listings based on the criteria that we've spoken about, type of home you're looking for, area you're looking in, type of how many bedrooms, how many baths, and what's important. Those things we'll target first to see what we can find in your price point. Okay. Once we've targeted a few homes, we'll go out and start looking at them. This process should be fun, and I want this process to be fun for you, right? Because how many times are you going to have an opportunity to buy your very first house? Once. So let's make it fun. It can be stressful, but enjoy this experience because you only get to do it once. All right. So we're going to go out. We're going to look at a bunch of different homes. You're going to find homes that you walk up to and you go, oh, I hate this home. I don't even want to see it. Good. Let's leave. So if you walk up to the house and you got a feeling and you're like, oh, I don't like the neighborhood. I don't like the houses, whatever. Okay. Let's just turn around and walk back to the car and head on to the next house. Okay. You're going to open the door. You're going to see a bunch of different homes. What I want you to do is I want you to take a look at things like we need to look at the window sills. We need to look at the door frames. We need to look at the ceilings. We need to look at the flooring. Is it buckling? I will help you understand what we're looking at so that we spend your money on the best home for the money you want to spend. Okay. You'll know when you walk in if that's the right home for you. Okay. You will walk in, you'll go, oh, this is it. Now, the problem with that is you may walk into a home and go, oh, this is it. And I may go, no, it's not. And you're going to look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what do you mean? And I'm going to point out things that you probably are not going to see or recognize that may be a problem. It's just experience and time in doing this. And you may not be happy with me, but ultimately you'll understand that I'm working in your best interest and trying to help make sure that you spend your money on the best home possible. And I protect you in this process. So we find that perfect home. This is the one. Okay, the next step to this process is for me to call the agent and find out as much information from that agent as possible about their house, how many offers they might have, what types of financing they've received, how much maybe over ask if she'll tell us how much over ask, so we know what we need to do to be competitive for you. Now, a competitive offer in this market is going to start with, if you don't have down payment assistance, you're going to have your own down. You're going to have to put your down payment down. On a conventional loan, it's about 3%. That's the minimum. On an FHA loan, you're going to need to put 3.5% down. Okay. So let's hypothetically, we got an FHA loan. So you need 3.5% down. On a $200,000 house, you're looking at $7,000 as your down payment. Okay. Then you're going to have closing costs. Closing costs are the costs that are associated with getting the loan. Okay. It's going to incorporate title searches. It's going to include attorney's fees. It's going to the loan origination fees. All of those things are part of your closing costs. Okay. Now, in other markets, we've been able to get the seller to pay for that, but not in the last 2 years. It's just this market's been just so competitive that, people are paying their closing costs. People aren't asking for special concessions. They're not asking for anything. So the perfect offer, in my opinion, that I would recommend to you is you're going to have to pay your own closing costs. You're going to have to pay your own down payment. The next thing I would suggest you do is it's called bridging the gap. And that's basically giving an incentive to the seller to work with you. So how that works is, hypothetically, you find this $200,000 house that you're in love with. I find out that they've got offers well over asking price. So you may have to offer $220,000 in order to be competitive. Well, we call it bridging the gap. So bridging the gap. That's a term we use for guaranteeing the seller an extra money over appraisal. Okay, so the listing price on the house was $200,000. We had to go and offer $220,000 because they had multiple offers on the house. One of the things I would recommend you doing is offering an additional $5,000 to $10,000 over the appraisal amount up to that $220,000. So if the appraisal came in roughly, say, at $210,000, you would guarantee the seller an extra $10,000 to bring it up to that $220,000 mark. If the appraisal came in at $205,000, you would still offer that $10,000, and the seller would get an extra $10,000 at the $205,000. So basically, your purchase price would be $215,000. Next thing I would do is I would not ask for any concessions. Let's just get this thing under contract, and then the next step after that is getting inspection. Okay. So we submit an offer, we do all of those things. We're fortunate enough they accepted our offer. What next? The next step is getting an inspection done. All right. We need to get the inspection done within the first couple of days of our due diligence period, so we have enough time to review the inspection report and be able to respond back to the seller appropriately. Once we get the inspection report back, there will be problems on it. The job of the inspector is to find issues, and that's what they're getting paid to do. Okay, so we're going to create an A, B, and C list. An A list would be the stuff that if these aren't addressed by the seller, that you're going to terminate the contract. Okay, the B items would be these are things we'd really like to see if we can get the seller to fix. But if they're not going to fix them or they don't fix them, it doesn't matter. You're still buying the house anyway. You love the house. And the C items will be the stuff that I normally would pull out of an inspection report that you may not be aware of. And what I'll do is it's called the document that we present to the seller is called the amendment to address concerns. Okay, that's the instrument that we present to the seller to tell them, here are the issues that we found with the home and we'd like to get these addressed. So I will make an inspection report look, I'll put as many things as I can in it to say, hey, we need these items addressed. Now, there's a number of different things that we can do when we present an amendment to address concerns. One of the things that we can do is we can just ask to have the repairs done, okay, and see what they're willing to do. The next thing we can do is ask them to have the repairs done and maybe give us some other concession. Like if there's just a number of bigger ticket items or maybe even smaller ticket items, but we want to see if we can get them to maybe give us a home warranty with doing some of those repairs and a home warranty and that type of thing. The last thing that we can do, or the last thing that we might do, is what they call in lieu of repairs. What we'll do is I'll have our contractor come in, give us a quote on the repairs that are most important to you, and then we'll ask the seller to, at closing costs through seller proceeds, pay for the repairs to the contractor directly. And in different markets, we're very successful in getting the contractor quotes approved and the seller paying for those. We've had roofs replaced, whole homes painted. We've had HVAC systems replaced. Now, you don't get the check. The check would go directly to the contractor for those repairs. The other thing is in lieu of repairs, maybe you need closing costs. And instead of having those repairs done, we maybe ask them to pay some closing costs. So there's a number of things we can do. It just depends on what's important to you and what we think that we can get the seller to do for us when we get our inspection done. Just remember, we don't know what the seller is willing to do unless we ask. So that's something that you need to understand is don't be afraid to ask. So we present the amendment to address concerns. The seller comes back and says, yes, we're willing to fix some of these things. No, we're not willing to fix some of those things. Then you have a choice to make. At that point, you can either accept that or we can counter back and say we'd like something else or whatever. Once we go back and forth enough and they agree, you agree, and we're moving forward, then we go on to the next thing. Just remember, the seller wants to sell, you want to buy. It's just a matter of finding that common ground between the two of you so that we can move this thing forward. So once we have we've got them to agree to doing some repairs on the house, the next step is the appraisal. Lender will order the appraisal. They'll order a third-party company to go out and do the appraisal on the house. That's basically just finding out determination of value to making sure the home will appraise for the amount you're looking to purchase it. So once we get the appraisal back, several things could happen. One, the house appraises. Fantastic. That's what we want. Second thing that could happen is maybe the house comes back and it appraises for more. Well, what does that mean? Well, that just means that you either have positive equity in the home, or I would recommend using that equity to either get something done in the home or maybe cover some closing costs. And that's achieved by just telling the seller that raise the price on the house to the appraisal amount, and then asking the seller to either pay a concession check at closing to your contractor, or we ask them to pay some closing costs for you. Once again, I want to keep as much of your money in your pocket as possible. Okay, so the third thing that could happen is the house doesn't appraise. Okay, so what do we do now? All right, well, if we've got the appraisal gap in there, we basically said that if the house doesn't appraise, we'll pay X number of dollars over the appraisal amount up to whatever offer price was. So again, if the house doesn't appraise, that appraisal gap will be in there to kind of cover us, and whatever the seller will get an extra 5, 10, 15, whatever the appraisal gap is, that is you've offered the seller. So that shouldn't be a problem. They will have to lower the price of the house down. You'll have to pay that extra money at closing. So just understand that's cash out of pocket. That is not something that's getting financed. So hypothetically, we offer $220 and the appraisal comes in at $210. Well, you're going to have to come out of pocket that other $10,000 up to that $220. So just understand that. So those are 3 things that could happen during an appraisal. Once we get past the appraisal, the next step is basically finishing documents with the lender, with underwriting, getting them everything that they need, and scheduling closing. Normally, this process can take anywhere from 21 to 30 days, depending on your financing. From the time we go binding, and that's again when the seller says yes to your offer, everybody's moving forward with buying the house, to the time we go to close. Several days, usually 3 to 4 days before closing, we'll receive a closing disclosure. That closing disclosure will tell us exactly what you need to wire to the closing attorney prior to closing to buy the home. All right. When you come to closing, you'll need to bring a check. Just bring an extra blank check just in case we're $10, $15, $20 off, and bring your driver's license. All right. Once we get to closing and we're sitting down there with the closing attorney, it's going to take anywhere, depending on whether it's a cash purchase or if it's financing. If it's a cash purchase, closing could take a half hour to an hour. If it's financing, closing could take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. It just depends on the type of financing you're doing, because that stack gets thicker as you go FHA, VA, USDA. So just be aware of that. Closing, the day you close, usually you get the keys to the house, unless you made some other arrangements, like we're allowing the sellers to rent back from you for a short period of time after closing, a couple days or whatever, just so that they can get the money that they need to get the movers they need to move out. Okay. But normally at closing, you get your keys, and the house is yours. So that's a little bit about closing. It's pretty much straightforward.